I was about 13, I guess.
Was it easy, hard?
No, it was tough. Yeah.
Tough. I've read that there was a sort of a casual wave goodbye.
Yeah, I was down the street playing with some guys, and
At 95, Gene Hackman has finally broken his silence, sharing the reasons behind his decision to quit acting after a legendary run that spanned decades. This isn't just about his departure from Hollywood, it's about a life filled with triumphs, struggles, and a deeply personal choice to step away from fame. Understand Hackman's decision, we need to start with who he is and why his exit was such a big deal. Gene Hackman is a name synonymous with versatility and grit. Born in 1930 in San Bernardino, California, he didn't grow up dreaming of movie stardom. He had a tough childhood, marked by his parents' divorce and a restless spirit that led him to join the Marines at 16, lying about his age to enlist. After serving, he bounced around, working odd jobs and studying journalism before finding his way to acting. He trained at the Pasadena Playhouse, where he met lifelong friend Dustin Hoffman and slowly built a career that would make him a legend. By the time he retired in 2004, Hackman had starred in over 80 films, won 2 Oscars, and left an indelible mark on cinema, with roles in classics like The French Connection, Unforgiven, The Conversation, and Hoosiers. His ability to play everyman heroes, ruthless villains, and everything in between made him a favorite of directors and audiences alike. So, why did a man at the peak of his craft just walk away? Hackman's last film was Welcome to Mooseport in 2004, a light comedy that didn't exactly scream final bow. At the time, he was 74, still in demand and showing no signs of slowing down. Yet, after that movie, he vanished from the screen. No farewell tour, no big announcement, just silence. For years, fans and industry insiders speculated. Was it health issues, burnout, a disdain for Hollywood's changing landscape? Hackman stayed tight-lipped, living quietly in New Mexico with his wife, Betsy Arakawa, and focusing on writing novels. But now, at 95, he's opened up about what drove him to leave, and his reasons are as complex and compelling as the characters he played. Hackman's decision to quit was rooted in a mix of personal reflection, health concerns, and a desire to reclaim his life. One of the biggest factors he's cited is stress. Acting, especially at the level Hackman performed, is grueling. He was known for his intense preparation, diving deep into his characters' psyches to deliver performances that felt raw and real. Take his role as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, 1971, where he played a rough-edged cop chasing drug smugglers. Hackman spent weeks riding along with real NYPD detectives, soaking up their mannerisms and mindset. The film earned him his first Oscar, but the physical and emotional toll was immense. He's said that scenes like the famous car chase under the elevated train tracks left him exhausted, running on adrenaline and little sleep. That kind of intensity was a hallmark of his career, but by his 70s, Hackman started to feel the weight of it. In a recent interview, he revealed that his doctor warned him about the impact of stress on his heart, especially after a minor health scare in the early 2000s. Hackman took it seriously, deciding that the high-pressure world of film sets wasn't worth risking his health. But it wasn't just about his heart, it was about his soul, too. Hackman has always been a private guy, despite his larger-than-life screen presence. He never chased fame the way some actors did. In fact, he said he found the trappings of stardom, red carpets, interviews, constant attention, uncomfortable. Growing up, he was a shy kid who felt out of place, and even after becoming a star, he never fully embraced Hollywood's glitz. He lived modestly, avoiding the LA party scene, and preferred spending time with his family or painting, a hobby he's pursued for decades. By the time he hit his 70s, Hackman realized he wanted a life that was truly his, not one dictated by studio schedules or public expectations. He's said that after Welcome to Mooseport, he looked at his life and thought, I don't need this anymore. It wasn't about hating acting. He loved the craft, but about wanting peace. Another piece of the puzzle was Hollywood itself. When Gene Hackman began acting in the 1960s, it was the dawn of New Hollywood, a transformative period in American cinema that broke away from the polished studio system of the Golden Age. This was the era of gritty, character-driven films like Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, where Hackman delivered a memorable performance as Buck Barrow, the loyal but doomed brother of Clyde. These films redefined storytelling, emphasizing raw emotion, moral ambiguity, and complex characters over formulaic narratives. Directors like Francis Ford Coppola, William Friedkin, and Clint Eastwood saw in Hackman an actor who could embody flawed, human characters with an authenticity that resonated deeply with audiences. His rugged features, intense presence, and ability to convey both strength and vulnerability made him a cornerstone of this cinematic revolution. New Hollywood was a fertile ground for actors like Hackman, who thrived in roles that demanded emotional depth and nuance. Films like The French Connection, 1971, where he played the relentless detective Jimmy "Popeye" Doyle, showcased his ability to portray characters driven by obsession and grit. His performance earned him his first Academy Award for Best Actor, cementing his status as one of the era's defining talents. Similarly, in The Conversation, 1974, directed by Coppola, Hackman's portrayal of Harry Call, a paranoid surveillance expert unraveling under the weight of his own guilt, revealed a quieter, more introspective side of his craft. These roles weren't just performances, they were studies in human complexity, reflecting the era's fascination with anti-heroes and moral ambiguity. But by the early 2000s, the industry was undergoing a seismic shift. The rise of blockbusters and superhero movies began to dominate Hollywood's landscape, driven by advancements in CGI and a growing emphasis on franchise-driven storytelling. The mid-budget dramas and character studies that had defined Hackman's career, films like Mississippi Burning, 1988, or Unforgiven, 1992, were becoming less common. Studios prioritized spectacle over substance, favoring high-grossing tentpole films over the intimate, story-driven projects that had allowed Hackman to shine. In a rare interview from 2008, Hackman hinted at his discomfort with this new direction, saying, "The business changed. It wasn't about the story anymore, it was about how many explosions you could fit on the screen." He wasn't entirely dismissive of modern cinema. He's praised films like the Coen brothers' No Country for Old Men, 2007, for their storytelling and depth. But he also admitted, with his characteristic dry humor, "I wasn't about to start doing CGI battles in a cape." For Hackman, the shift in Hollywood's priorities meant there was less room for the kinds of roles he excelled at, roles that demanded emotional truth over flashy visuals. This changing landscape wasn't the only factor in Hackman's decision to retire, though it played a significant role. He was also driven by a desire to explore other passions that had long simmered beneath the surface. After stepping away from acting in 2004, following his final role in the comedy Welcome to Mooseport, Hackman turned to writing as a creative outlet. He co-authored historical novels with Daniel Lenihan, a marine archaeologist and friend, including Wake of the Perdido Star, 1999, and Escape from Andersonville, 2008. These novels, steeped in historical detail and adventure, allowed Hackman to channel his love for storytelling in a new medium. Writing, he said, offered a sense of control and solitude that acting never could. On a set, you're at the mercy of schedules, directors, and 100 other people, he remarked in a 2011 interview. With a book, it's just you and the page. There's freedom in that. Hackman's novels reflect his lifelong curiosity and intellectual depth. A voracious reader, he's spoken about his love for history, literature, and biography, interests that informed his writing. Wake of the Perdido Star, for instance, is a seafaring adventure set in the early 19th century, blending historical accuracy with vivid storytelling. Escape from Andersonville, co-written with Lenihan, explores the Civil War through the lens of a daring prison escape, showcasing Hackman's ability to craft compelling narratives outside the confines of a film set. Writing allowed him to express himself in a quieter, more introspective way, free from the emotional and physical demands of acting. He's described the process as both challenging and rewarding, noting that it gave him a creative spark without the grueling intensity of embodying a character. Beyond writing, Hackman also turned to painting, a passion he's nurtured for decades. His landscapes and portraits, often inspired by the sweeping vistas of New Mexico where he's lived since the 1990s, remain largely private. In a rare comment about his artwork, he described painting as a meditative practice, one that allowed him to capture moments of beauty and stillness. "It's not about showing off," he said. "It's about seeing something, a mountain, a face, and trying to get it right on the canvas." This shift towards solitary creative pursuits reflects Hackman's desire for a life less tethered to public scrutiny. Unlike acting, which required him to bare his soul before audiences and critics, writing and painting offered a private space to explore his inner world. To fully appreciate Hackman's decision to retire, it's worth examining the extraordinary career he left behind. His filmography is a testament to his versatility and depth, spanning genres and decades with an ease that few actors could match. In The French Connection, his portrayal of Popeye Doyle is a masterclass in intensity, a cop consumed by his pursuit of justice. yet flawed by his own recklessness. The role required Hackman to immerse himself in the gritty reality of 1970s New York, shadowing real detectives to capture their mannerisms and mindset. The result was a performance that felt lived in, raw, and unforgettable. In contrast, the conversation showcased Hackman's ability to convey quiet torment. As Harry Call, he's a man haunted by the moral implications of his work, his paranoia mirrored by the film's claustrophobic sound design and Coppola's meticulous direction. Hackman prepared for the role by studying surveillance techniques and grappling with the character's isolation, a process that left him emotionally drained. "Harry stayed with me," he later admitted. "You don't just shake off a guy like that." Hackman's range extended to villainous roles as well. In Clint Eastwood's Unacary Forgiven, 1992, he played Little Bill Daggett, a sheriff whose folksy charm masks a brutal streak. The role earned him his second Oscar, this time for Best Supporting Actor, and remains one of the most nuanced portrayals of a Western antagonist in cinema history. Hackman's ability to humanize even the most despicable characters was a hallmark of his craft. He could make audiences empathize with a villain, as he did with Lex Luthor in Superman, 1978, where his comedic flair and charisma turned a comic book baddie into a memorable foe. And in Hoosiers, 1986, he brought heart and humor to the role of a small-town basketball coach, proving he could shine in lighter, feel-good stories as well. This versatility wasn't effortless, despite how it appeared on screen. Hackman has spoken candidly about the toll acting took on him. For Mississippi Burning, where he played an FBI agent investigating racially motivated murders in 1960s Mississippi, he spent weeks in the South, meeting locals and immersing himself in the region's history. The film's heavy themes, racial injustice, violence, and moral compromise, weighed on him, and he's said that carrying those emotions home was exhausting. "You're not just playing a character," he explained. "You're living their pain, their anger. It sticks with you." This level of immersion, while key to his powerful performances, contributed to his eventual desire to step away from acting. Hackman's personal struggles also shaped his perspective on his career and life. Born in 1930 in San Bernardino, California, he grew up in a working-class family during the Great Depression. His father's departure when he was young left a lasting mark, fueling a sense of abandonment that Hackman channeled into his work. "That moment when he walked out, it's something you don't forget," he said in a 2004 interview. Acting became a way to process that pain, but it also meant confronting his insecurities. Despite his success, Hackman often felt like an outsider in Hollywood. He wasn't a traditional leading man, with his weathered looks and everyman demeanor, and he's admitted to battling self-doubt throughout his career. "Every time I walked on a set, I felt like I had to prove I belonged," he said. That drive pushed him to deliver remarkable performances. But it also made acting a high-stakes endeavor, one that became less appealing as he aged. By his 70s, Hackman was ready to shed that pressure. He wanted a life where he didn't have to constantly prove himself, where he could find peace in simpler pursuits. His marriage to Betsy Arakawa in 1991 marked a turning point. The couple settled in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a place that offered a stark contrast to the frenetic pace of Hollywood. Santa Fe's desert landscapes and quiet beauty suited Hackman's introspective nature, and he's spoken about how much he values the tranquility of his life there. "It's a place where you can think, where you can breathe," he said in a 2013 interview. His relationship with Arakawa, a former classical pianist, has been a source of stability and joy. While Hackman is private about his personal life, he's described Betsy as his partner in every sense, someone who shares his love for art, music, and the outdoors. Hackman also has 3 children from his first marriage to Faye Maltese, which ended in divorce in 1986. Though he's guarded about his family, he's hinted that his decision to retire was partly motivated by a desire to be more present for them. "You get to a certain age, and you realize what matters," he said in a rare comment on the subject. "It's not the next role, it's the people you love." In his 90s, Hackman has reflected on how much he cherishes the small moments. Reading with Betsy, painting in his studio, or simply watching the sunset over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Leaving Hollywood allowed him to prioritize those relationships in a way his demanding career never permitted. Health was another critical factor in his decision to retire, though it wasn't widely discussed at the time. In the early 2000s, Hackman experienced a minor heart issue. Not life-threatening, but enough to prompt a serious reevaluation of his lifestyle. Filmmaking, particularly for someone as committed as Hackman, was physically and mentally taxing. For Crimson Tide 1995, he underwent rigorous training to understand the dynamics of a submarine crew, spending hours in confined spaces to capture the claustrophobia of the setting. For The Quick and the Dead 1995, he endured long, grueling days on a dusty Western set, riding horses and performing stunts under the scorching sun. At 74, the physical demands of such roles were no longer sustainable. His doctor's advice was blunt: slow down or face serious consequences. Hackman took it to heart, choosing health and longevity over the fleeting thrill of fame. "I didn't want to push my luck," he later said. "I'd had a good run." Far from being a tale of retreat, Hackman's retirement is a story of reinvention. He's described his post-Hollywood years as among the happiest of his life. In Santa Fe, he's embraced a slower, more deliberate pace, far removed from the chaos of movie sets and red carpets. He's continued to write, publishing 5 novels, including Pursuit, 2013, a thriller about a retired cop drawn back into a dangerous case. Writing, he says, offers the same creative fulfillment as acting, but without the pressure of performing for an audience. "You get to tell a story on your own terms," he explained. "No one's shouting 'cut' or telling you to do it again." Hackman has also stayed physically active, biking and hiking well into his 80s. At 95, he remains sharp and engaged, a testament to his disciplined lifestyle. In a 2023 interview, he laughed about how he still gets recognized occasionally, often by fans surprised to see a Hollywood legend in a Santa Fe coffee shop. "I just smile and keep walking," he said. "They're usually nice about it." His humility and grounded nature have endeared him to those who know him, and his decision to step away from the spotlight has only deepened his appreciation for the life he's built. Hackman's legacy, however, remains firmly rooted in his contributions to cinema. His performances continue to inspire actors and filmmakers, from the raw intensity of The French Connection to the quiet devastation of The Conversation and the chilling authority of Unforgiven. He was a bridge between the old Hollywood of method acting and the new Hollywood of bold experimental storytelling, leaving an indelible mark on both. His ability to disappear into a role, to make every character feel real and lived in, set a standard that few have matched. Yet, what makes Hackman's story so compelling is his willingness to walk away from it all. In an industry that often clings to fame at any cost, he chose authenticity over adulation, trading the spotlight for a life of quiet creativity. His retirement wasn't an end but a new beginning, a chance to explore passions he'd long set aside and to find joy in the everyday. At 95, Gene Hackman is a man at peace, a rarity in a world that often demands more than it gives. His journey from a struggling actor to a cinematic icon to a contented novelist and painter is a reminder that true fulfillment comes not from external validation, but from living a life true to oneself. System. Hackman's reflections also touch on his relationships with colleagues. He's spoken warmly of friends like Dustin Hoffman, with whom he shared a cramped New York apartment in their struggling actor days. They'd stay up late talking about craft, pushing each other to take risks. Hackman's also praised directors like Clint Eastwood, who gave him free rein to shape Little Bill in Unforgiven. But he's admitted to clashing with some, like Wes Anderson on The Royal Tenenbaums, 2001, where he felt the younger director's style was too improvisational. These dynamics shaped his experience, and by the end, he was ready to leave the collaborative chaos of filmmaking behind. Let's dive into some of his standout roles to appreciate what he left behind. In The French Connection, Hackman's Popeye Doyle is a force of nature, gruff, obsessive, and morally gray. The car chase scene, where he pursues a train through New York, is a masterclass in tension, and Hackman's intensity carries it. He's said that role was one of the hardest, requiring him to tap into a level of aggression he didn't know he had. In The Conversation, his Harry Caul is the opposite. Quiet, paranoid, unraveling under the weight of his own conscience. Hackman's research for the role involved studying real surveillance experts, and he said the character's loneliness hit close to home. Unforgiven showed him as a villain, with Little Bill's calm cruelty masking a sadistic streak. Hackman's Oscar-winning performance was built on subtle choices, like the way he'd smile before delivering a brutal line. These roles show why his retirement was such a loss. Nobody could do what Hackman did. Hackman's also addressed the rumors about his retirement. Some thought he was bitter about Hollywood, but he's debunked that. "I wasn't angry," he said, "I was just done." He didn't want to keep playing the game. Auditions, negotiations, the constant hustle. He's also laughed off rumors of but he's left the door slightly ajar, admitting that a truly special project might tempt him. Still, he's content, saying his novels and paintings are enough to keep him fulfilled. The cultural impact of Hackman's work can't be overstated. His films have inspired generations of actors and filmmakers. The French Connection redefined cop movies. Unforgiven revitalized the Western, and The Conversation remains a touchstone for paranoid thrillers. Hackman's performances are studied in acting classes for their nuance. Every glance, pause, or inflection carries weight. Fans on platforms like IMDb, where Unforgiven scores an 8.2, and Rotten Tomatoes, where The French Connection holds a 98% rating, still rave about his work. He's said he's flattered but surprised by the enduring love, noting that he never expected his films to become classics. Hackman's reflections also reveal his thoughts on fame. He's always been uneasy with it, describing it as a necessary evil of the job. He avoided talk shows and kept his personal life private, a rarity in Hollywood. In Santa Fe, he's lived a low-key life, occasionally spotted at local bookstores or cafes. Locals describe him as friendly but reserved, happy to chat briefly but quick to retreat. This desire for privacy was a big reason he left. Fame felt like a trap, and he wanted freedom. Another layer to his decision was his evolving view of acting itself. Early in his career, he saw it as a way to prove himself, to escape the insecurities of his youth. But over time, he started to see it as just a job. One he loved, but not one that defined him. He said that by his 70s, he realized he didn't need to act to feel complete. Writing and painting gave him new ways to express himself, and moving to New Mexico let him reconnect with nature and himself. He's described the desert as a place where he can think clearly, a stark contrast to the frenzy of Hollywood. Hackman's health scare in the early 2000s was a turning point. He's described it as a little wake-up call, not a heart attack, as some rumors suggested, but enough to make him prioritize longevity. He started focusing on exercise, diet, and stress reduction, habits he's maintained into his 90s. He's proud of his resilience, saying, "I'm still here, still kicking." His active lifestyle, biking, gardening, even some light yoga has kept him sharp, and he said it's helped him enjoy retirement fully. His relationship with his family also played a role. Hackman's marriage to Betsy, a classical pianist, has been a source of stability. They met in the 1980s and married in 1991, and he's called her his rock. His kids from his first marriage are grown, and while he's private about them, he said he's worked to stay close despite the demands of his career. Leaving Hollywood gave him time to nurture those bonds, something he felt he'd missed during his busiest years.
Hackman's novels deserve a shout-out too. His first, Wake of the Perdido Star, 1999, is a seafaring adventure written with Lenahan, who brought historical expertise to their partnership. Later novels like Justice for None, 2004, and Pursuit, 2013, show Hackman's knack for storytelling, with taut prose and vivid characters. He's said writing is harder than acting. You can't hide behind a director's vision, but also more rewarding because it's all his. Fans of his books often note echoes of his film roles in their tough, flawed protagonists, and Hackman's admitted he draws on his acting experience to craft believable characters. Looking back, Hackman's career is a testament to his work ethic. He wasn't a natural star like Robert Redford or Paul Newman. He looked like a regular guy with his everyman face and stocky build. But that's what made him special. He could disappear into any role, from a comic villain to a haunted hero. He's said he worked hard to make every performance feel real, often rewriting lines to fit his character's voice. In Hoosiers, his coach Norman Dale feels like a real small-town guy, thanks to Hackman's subtle choices, like the way he hesitates before a big speech. That authenticity is why his films still resonate. Hackman's reflections also touch on the changing nature of Hollywood. In the 1970s, he was part of a wave of actors, Hoffman, De Niro, Pacino, who brought raw intensity to their roles. But by the 2000s, the rise of CGI-heavy blockbusters and reality TV made him feel like an outsider. He said he doesn't resent the change, he just didn't want to adapt to it. He's praised younger actors like Christian Bale and Leonardo DiCaprio, but admits he doesn't follow modern movies closely. His taste leans toward classics like The Bridge on the River Kwai or Lawrence of Arabia, films he grew up admiring. One of the most poignant things Hackman shared is his sense of peace. He's said he doesn't miss the spotlight, only the camaraderie of the set. He's stayed in touch with a few old friends like Hoffman and Robert Duvall, but he's content with a small circle. His life in Santa Fe is simple: mornings writing, afternoons painting, evenings with Betsy. He said the desert's vastness reminds him of his place in the world, small but significant. It's a perspective that's hard-won, shaped by a life of highs and lows. Hackman's also addressed the legacy of his work. Films like The French Connection and Unforgiven are still taught in film schools, and his performances are dissected on forums like Reddit and Letterboxd. He's amused by the fan theories. Some say the conversation predicted modern surveillance culture, and he's flattered that his work still sparks debate. But he's quick to deflect praise, saying, "I was just doing my job." That humility is part of what makes him so beloved. At 95, Hackman's reflections show a man at peace with his choices. He said leaving Hollywood was like taking off a heavy coat. He doesn't regret a thing, not the Oscars, not the fame, but also not the decision to walk away. He's proud of his films, but prouder of the life he's built since. His story is a reminder that success isn't just about staying in the game, it's about knowing when to leave it. At 95, he's still creating, still reflecting, still inspiring. If you're a fan, maybe it's time to revisit The French Connection or Unforgiven to remember why he's a legend. And if you're new to his work, you're in for a treat. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into why Gene Hackman left Hollywood. If you've got a favorite Hackman role or moment, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And who knows, maybe at 95, Hackman's still got a few surprises left.